Hey everyone, welcome to the results video of my 11th monthly contest, the Wooden Coaster Contest. Now, in this round we had a record-breaking 47 entries, or even a few others which were not good enough or didn't follow the rules. So yeah, 47 entries were accepted in the end. Now, while I'm talking you might hear some pops and bangs in the background. That's because I'm in the Netherlands, and around New Year's Eve, in a few days around it, the country turns into a war zone. So, so that's that. So if you hear anything, well, yeah. Alright, because there's so many entries, I will just go through the lower scoring ones really quickly, and I'll spend a little bit more time in the top entries. Alright, let's move on to the one that got last place. Alright, here we have the entry that got last place. Well, yeah, as you can see, this coaster layout is a bit of a mess, but what most people didn't like was what the coaster does here, for example. It does these crazy jumps. Oh yeah, what I should probably also tell is that in this round, for the first time, we had a voting scoring system that was a bit different than usual. So in this round, people actually graded two things. So first they have to give a rating for the wooden coaster, which would be 1/2 of the final score. And the other category was that people had to rate the park as a whole. So I did this so people would not win the round with a lackluster woody, but with awesome scenery. But yeah, this was last place, and these crazy jumps probably didn't help, and the messy layout also really didn't help. These buildings, they're really simple. They could probably also have used some improvement. So yeah, if you're looking for a way to make good buildings, you should check the Thesheq channel on my Discord. It's where a user by the name SwagTitties compiles just pictures of awesome buildings from my contests that should be quite easy to recreate, but which look incredibly good. Alright, here we have the entry by Juantonieo. He made this wooden coaster here. Now, as you can see, it has this weird support structure with the structure actually above the track. Probably it would have just been nicer to have the structure next to the track. I think what people didn't like was that, yeah, the coaster layout, it's a bit unconventional. It's just very twisty. It probably just looks like a steel coaster track, which has later been converted to a wooden track. It doesn't really follow traditional wooden coaster layout. Other than that, yeah, there's not really other rides to look at, and the landscaping is a bit bare. So yeah, if you want to score better with your park, you should really make sure to add extra buildings, add rides, just add interesting stuff for people to see in every corner of the park. Okay, here we have the entry by Yeebaagoon. He actually got a 1-point deduction because after accepting the park, I actually found some custom scenery here in this path. And custom scenery, rides, paths are not allowed in my contests. So usually I don't accept entries which have these, but here it slipped past, and I found out later. So yeah, that's why there's the 1-point deduction. You're not allowed to use that. Other than that, I think, and many others think, that the scenery in this park was top notch. I really like the trick he did with this pyramid, because it's actually a bigger pyramid than usual. I think he copied some of these lower pieces to a lower tier. You can actually see it here. I think there's actually 3 tiers. So yeah, it's a lot bigger than usual. You can find some smaller pyramids here as well by just copying the top piece. So yeah, scenery is great, but this wooden coaster layout, it's just a big mess down here. It's really hard to follow. When making a wooden coaster, you really should not make these tight turns which it takes at high speed. It just looks like a bit of a big knot down here. Also, a lot of coasters underground. That's usually also not rated very highly. So yeah, great scenery, not very good coaster. Alright, here we have the entry by MIDIbusker. I actually kinda liked some part of this coaster. Here the layout looks quite normal. But then it has this really cool section where it goes eventually behind this dam, where it does this big drop, right, with this airtime hill here in front of the waterfall. I actually really liked this part of the coaster. I wish the rest of the coaster was more like it as well. The layout is quite nice, but yeah, stuff like this should really be avoided. These tight spirals, that's not really something Woody usually does. Other than that, yeah, there's not much decoration. If you just fill your map with trees, well, people will not rate your park very highly, rather than if you fill it with buildings and other interesting rides to look at. Also, big station, but with a big flat roof. Generally, your buildings will look a lot more interesting with, well, without a flat roof. Alright, let's move on to the next entry. Okay, here we have the next entry by a user with a name that I'm not going to try to pronounce. So yeah, the layout of the Woody is quite okay. It's probably a bit too fast over all these little hills. It looks like it would rattle you out of your seats. The scenery is okay. I do like some of these buildings. The station building here is actually quite nice. The transfer track, I'm not sure how it would work. And there's also some other questionable scenery here. Even as a sign, your PP should be this big to ride. Okay. But yeah. Also here in the back, the scenery is all a bit looks all a bit random, a bit lackluster. So yeah, to me it just looks a bit like a mess of different kinds of scenery. It looks okay, but it's not really that interesting to look at. Let's call it that. Probably a lot of room for improvement here. But yeah, when you make a transfer track, make sure that it would actually work. Right here we have the entry made by Scottish.Novice, another newcomer. Yeah, at first glance the Woody does look quite nice. Does have some strange parts, like these supports that are just hanging here. When you put supports on your coaster, make sure they actually touch somewhere so that they actually support the coaster and that they're not just floating in the air. Another gripe I had with this coaster was this station. I mean, the station does look quite okay, but it uses the same track color, so it just blends in with the track. You probably should use different materials to make your coaster and your roof. As right now it's kind of difficult to see where the roof begins and where it ends. Other than that, I do like the plants here and the other rides. Here's a little new area of the park. Yeah, I think when you make something in a park, you really should not build it up to the edge like this. It makes it look like it's shoehorned in there. Probably would have been nicer if this wall right on the edge was removed to make it look like it's cut out and it might extend further. Yeah, story said the park's in a state of disrepair. Well, yeah, you can see that from these benches here. So yeah, the state of disrepair. It's okay to make a park with a story like that, but even a state of disrepair, there are better ways to emulate it. But overall, I think it's not a bad effort for a first timer on my server. So good job. At least I do really like the trees and the plants. Alright, in 41st place we have this entry made by Mattiyahoo. So at first glance, it's woody, it looks huge. And there's also this big red platform here with an enterprise. Yeah, it does look like the wooden coaster actually glitches through it. You can still see parts of the wooden coaster here. Other than that, I would generally avoid making big wooden platforms. It's probably nicer to have actual ground. It generally just looks better. Another gripe I had with this park was that the shoreline here just looks plain unfinished. You should probably slope it a bit or decorate it. You could even put some walls here next to the shoreline just to make it look a bit nicer, you know, something like this. This already helps a lot and helps explain why it's just a straight shoreline. For the wooden coaster layout, I generally you should really avoid these long, straight, sloped sections. I think they look a bit jarring. Also, they're both parallel here with the chain lift, and in my opinion, it just makes it look like your coaster doesn't flow as well. I mean, these rounded curves are so much more pleasant to look at. So yeah, that should be what you should be going for in your coaster layout, and not these long, straight sloped sections. Okay, here we have the entry made by TomGarstenveld. If you may recognize that name from my multiplayer contests. He used to join in a lot of them, and now he decided to try his hand at the Woody contest. So yeah, I actually do like the wooden coaster. It has a nice layout and some nice interaction with the other ride. Maybe a little bit too much, because the other ride, I think it steals the spotlight away from the wooden coaster a bit. It's just so much more spectacular with its top hat and its inversions. But yeah, I think the Woody looks nice. I like the support work on the Woody, and looks like it has a good amount of airtime. Yeah, the hills aren't too crazy. So yeah, I actually kind of like it. But yeah, other than the Woody, the buildings are a bit simple. And again, most of the land is just filled with trees. So that usually makes people score it less than a park that's filled with buildings and other interesting stuff. But still, it's always nice to see people from the old days come back to play on my contests. I really like when it happens. Okay, here we have the entry from SalableFoil. Now, first off, I really don't think this snow and ice wool mixes with the green water. But of course, that's just a choice that he made. For the Woody layout, I also think it's a little bit strange. It's not your classical Woody. So from the station, it drops into this cliff, and then it comes out of the wall here. Then it does this track, which is decorated with this hardline twisted track, and does a spiral here, and then goes back into the wall. Honestly, though, I think this track again looks more like a steel coaster that has later been changed to a Woody, because it's not your traditional Woody layout. Other than that, I do kind of like the buildings. This is a typical RCT2 factory style, with the gumdrops used for smoke. I think you should really be a bit careful when using gumdrops as smoke, especially when you make it really dense here. But yeah, overall, I think the decorations are okay. I'm a bit less happy with the Woody, but also when you make a Woody, really, it just looks weird when you use a color scheme like this. Probably better to just go with brown. But yeah, it does fit the theme. Okay, here we have the entry made by Walibier. he made this coaster in a minefield. Actually, like this minefield, you can see some guests running around here with golf clubs. You can see another one here. This is just a mini golf track with some parts probably missing by usage of Tile Inspector. So when the guests come here, they explode. That's because guests are very explosive in this game. Now, and here we have this coaster. Walibier said it was based off the Smiler, but instead of 14 inversions, he gave it 14 drops. What I saw in the comments a lot, and what I fully agree with, is that the coaster layout is actually very messy. Yeah, there's just it's just difficult to follow, and it's really just goes over and under itself a lot. When you make a coaster like this, you should really give it some breathing space, just so you can actually try to follow the layout, instead of making a big mess like it is here. Other than that, here's the station of the coaster. It generally doesn't really look that good to make a big open building or just a glass box. It's probably better to use actual materials that are solid with some windows and stuff. So yeah, if you need inspiration for buildings, just go on my Discord and look in this way, check. It's probably better than a glass building. Other than that, the decorations in this park are a bit sparse. So yeah, let's move on to the next entry. Alright, here we have the entry made by Jamesixgun. So he made this coaster, which is based off the Rattler, the old Rattler, before it got converted to RMC. It's a bit of a strange layout, I think. Here we have the station, then it does a steep lift hill upwards, then double dip down into this other steep drop, and then it has this weird triple stacked helix, just like the old Rattler had. After that, it goes into and out of the mountain a few times before it returns to the station, where it also has a water splash for some reason. So yeah, I think the layout is a bit strange. Many people didn't understand the triple helix, but yeah, the story said it was a recreation of the Rattler. So I actually watched a video of it and recognized the triple helix. Yeah, it's unconventional, but it's there. Now, what most people complain about a bit in the comments was that why there's also these other rides. There's this twister coaster. I think this support structure under it is a bit too much for a twister coaster. Normally it just has steel supports under the lift hill. Other than that, this color scheme really, most people didn't really like it. The layout of the steel coaster is also a bit weird. And when you do corkscrews like that, you should really make them interlock to make them look better. Also, when you do a barrel roll, if you do a barrel roll to the right, you should then follow it by a turn to the right. There's a barrel roll to the left, and then followed by a turn to the right. It just looks really jarring in this transition. But yeah, other than that, for the landscaping, what I read in the comments, the landscaping also looks a bit blocky. You can see this block of land jutting out here. It probably looks a lot nicer if you make it less sharp, these transitions. So yeah, just like this. Oops. Disable clearance checks. So just well, okay. This may not be my best. I meant to pull this one. But yeah, okay. This is a great explanation. Probably like this. But yeah, this makes it look like more like actual rocks, and that will make it look much nicer, in my opinion. Alright, on to the next entry. Alright, here's the entry made by TIMidator. I think this is our smallest map that I saw. So yeah, but I do like the layout of the woody, but also the small map makes it look like it really was shoehorned in a bit, which probably also was the case. Now, when you make a woody, I typically try to avoid stacking helixes. It's not really something you see on coasters that are not made in Japan. But yeah, other than that, I do like the layout of the woody. It's nice. It's compact. The layout is good. There's some nice airtime moments. So yeah, my biggest concerns were with the buildings. Well, the woody looks nice. This building, it looks a bit, yeah, let's call it uninteresting. It's mostly just one material for all the walls. It probably looks better if you really make it look like there's floors in the building, which also show from outside. Maybe use some different materials there. I mean, you can slap these decorations on the side, but I don't think it really helps. Also, this building is fully made of glass. I do like this extra train stored here. That's actually pretty cool. But yeah, it generally doesn't really look nice to make your buildings fully out of glass. So that should generally be avoided. But overall, I like the woody layout. It's quite cool. Alright, here we have the entry from Phoenix Wing 101. She recreated Lightning Rod, the RMC coaster at I forgot which park it was. Dollywood, I believe. Well, if you recreate an RMC, I would typically use the articulated coaster trains. Yeah, I think the layout is actually recreated quite truthfully. It looks nice. It has these nice banked hills as well. But yeah, even if you do a recreation, that's no excuse to leave the landscape barren. So yeah, most of the landscape is just trees. I advised her to put some decorations, which she did. But yeah, there's not really much to rate besides this coaster. So the coaster generally got okay grades, but the park itself really didn't. So all the guests are bunched up here in this little section. So yeah, even if you do a recreation, you should really make sure to have some interesting stuff right next to it to look at, or else people will just be done watching the park really quickly, and then it will really be outshone by other parks in the contest. Alright, here we have the entry made by basthenoob. I really like this layout. It's a bit short. I think my own grade for this was a 7 for the woody and a 7 for the park. So hey, this was really my benchmark to compare other parks against. So yeah, it kind of reminds me of the woody that I did for the as an example. So yeah, just some nice airtime hills here. Here's a nice double up. The turnarounds are nice and curvy. So yeah, it all just looks okay. But of course the map size is really small, so that's also why this woody is also really small. I probably would have liked it with a bit more length to it. Other than that, yeah, here's another decent ride. For a junior coaster, I typically just advise you to only do one train. This one has 2 trains and they're waiting for each other all the time. These junior coasters typically have a bit longer trains, and typically they have one train which usually does several laps. But yeah, that's just a minor gripe. Also, I advised Buzz when you make a flower field like this. It generally looks nicer if you stack a few of the trees like this. It just breaks up the regular grid pattern a bit. In my opinion, it's a minor detail, but in my opinion this makes it look a little bit nicer. What I sometimes also do is, especially near the edge, maybe replace some of the flowers with bushes, just to make it look less square. But yeah, also probably better to not use green flowers. But overall, I like this entry. It was nice. Okay, this is the entry made by Weeknie. He made this Asian style entry, and his wooden coaster is very unusual as it has a really long train. You can see it here. I think it represents an Asian style dragon. Coaster is also called Dancing Dragon. So that's that. You can see it go over the track here. I'll speed it up a bit. Well, yeah, some people liked it, but most people, in my opinion, didn't really like it. Also, the layout of the coaster is a bit unusual. But I have to say, I do like the landscaping in some places. I really like the look of this temple. That's quite nicely done. So like the bamboo here. And there were some other cool buildings here as well. Not sure about this yellow building. Probably a McDonald's style or something. Again, a building here made out of glass. That's probably better avoided. So yeah, if you're a member on my Discord, you can, by the way, also download all these entries. Weeknie has hidden 5 pandas in this park. So if you're up for a challenge, you can try looking for them. Alright, on to the next entry. Okay, here we have the park made by ZenSix. So yeah, here we have this Woody, and what I didn't really like about this Woody was that, well yeah, it just needs a bit of breathing space right here. So the Woody actually does 3 circuits in this area. I've been getting a lot of hate for the way I pronounce circuits. So yeah, the coaster does 3 circuits in this area, and yeah, it just makes it really look like a big mess of track. When you do a coaster like this, you should really add some open space in the middle, just so the coaster is easier to follow than it is now. Same over in this area. If you put too many tracks next to each other, it just becomes a bit messy. The buildings are okay. I would generally really try to make it look like there's some floors. So it generally looks better if you add some decorations on the outside. Stuff like this. I mean, if you do this for every floor, it generally already looks a lot more interesting, rather than just making the buildings fully out of one material. Okay, here's the entry made by Indiesejado. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He made this really cool Woody. I actually like the color scheme on this one. It just works well in this park. So yeah, lift hill up, then here's a nice hill with some cool supports next to it. Yeah, here's a really cool turnaround. Here's a bit more of a twisty section, and then some more hills, and then back to the station. It maybe could have used a little bit more length, but yeah, I'd have to say I do like the layout. The decorations in the park are also nice. You can see this nice railroad, even with some Wild West sections. Some nice gardens here. My biggest critique in this park was, well Well, you have some forested areas, but I generally like those a lot more if they're a little bit more dense. But yeah, that's just a minor gripe. I think this park looks quite nice. Okay, here we have the entry made by Trumavarium. Well, yeah, what you can immediately see is that this coaster is really tucked into a corner here. I think he had the map and he only decided to expand it later, so that's why the coaster is really shoehorned in here. And yeah, that really shows. That's my main gripe with it. Other than that, I think it has a bit too many helixes. So yeah, this was not one of my favorites. At least the forests, they look quite nice. A good mix between normal trees and snowy trees. Also the other rides look quite cool. I like this snowmobile rental. So yeah, guests actually get to use the snowmobile in this little section. I think it's one of those dodgem rides from the expansions, but with invisible track. So they're actually going around on the snow. And there's also this ski lodge here, but no one actually goes down the hill. Of course, there's no skiing guests if you don't use custom rides, so there's that. So yeah, overall I think the landscape looks good, but in my opinion the Woody is just a bit tucked away there. Okay, here we have the entry made by Myna. I must say this Woody layout is quite cool. It uses these articulated trains, also has these twisty sections here. So yeah, the Woody, it's nice and short, nothing too special about it. And the buildings, they just look nice. I really like this station. Kind of looks like a church, which extends into this station building. The main gripe I had with this park was that damn, this rain all the time. The main gripe I had with this park was that all the buildings kind of look the same. It's probably nicer to have a little bit of variation, either with color and maybe also why they're all use the same materials. It's usually better to have a little bit of variation in that. There's this guy running around really frantically on top of this, probably the park entrance. Other than that, yeah, most of the map is just filled with trees. But yeah, there's enough stuff to look at. Just that the buildings look a little bit much too same. But generally, everything. I really like this park. Okay, here we have the entry made by Lawrencelot. He made this really futuristic landscape here with the Woody next to it on the mountainside. Now, for the Woody, again, I think it could have used a little bit more breathing space. So maybe an L shape would have been nice. Or maybe just some more space in the middle, just to make the layout a bit more easy to follow. Also, what I noticed on this coaster were that probably 90% of the turns were left-hand turns. That's usually something you should try to avoid. It's usually better to have a bit of a mix between left-hand turns and right-hand turns. I do like this station building. It's really massive and nicely decorated also with these castle elements. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, just a very futuristic landscape here. So the water has a strange color here. I'm not sure if it's really safe to swim in. Alright, on to the next entry. Okay, here we have the entry made by Thesheq. At first glance, this Woody looks quite good. It has a nice mix of hills which are smoothed out. I don't see any double ups or double downs. Maybe this one could be considered one. Not really. Yeah, so a double up or double down generally makes your Woody look a lot nicer. It's also a nice airtime element. But overall, when you zoom out, I think the park looks quite nice. But when you focus on details, I think there's just a lot of details that are just not completely right. This Ferris wheel, I think it looks a bit off center, and this center hub just looks a bit too wide for my taste. Also, when you make a Ferris wheel, I think it generally looks nicer if you make it go a little bit slower than this. The rain again. For these buildings, I do really like this building made with these ATMs. The tram going through it, I think it's a little bit jarring. Also, when you make buildings, there's some really nice examples in the swag shack that are probably worth taking a look at before you start making your own buildings. But I have to say, I like the flow of the paths in this park, so that's a good thing. So yeah, overall, not bad at all. It just could use some refining here and there. Now, the one thing that was really jarring to me was that this coaster here is above the water, but the supports were hidden here. The way he did that was by putting these track pieces under surface. You should never do that when you build your track above water, because then it will start disappearing at random moments. You could see it sometimes, especially when a car is passing next to it. So yeah, I made a tutorial on how to properly hide your supports. I really recommend checking that out, because you don't want your track to disappear like this. So it's just weird to have an unsupported track section like this. And also, when you make a shark, don't make it so long. I mean, 2 cars is enough. Okay, here we have the entry made by Blubottle. At first glance, this park looks really nice to me. I love this big station building. It's really nicely done. Lots of different materials, layers. So yeah, that's a big plus. So I love this entry to the castle. I think it's really nicely done. Really nicely decorated. The coaster layout, well yeah, it does look nice at first glance, but I think it's a bit excessive. I counted 5 or 6 chain lifts on this coaster. When you make a Woody, you really should only do 1 chain lift. Maybe 2 in some cases, but 5 or 6 is really pushing it. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And it's just really, a bit messy in places. Just a big mix of turns and drops. And I mean, I have to say it is all nicely decorated. But yeah, it's just too long in my opinion. 1 chain lift should be enough in your layout. Also, when you do make a chain lift, you should really avoid breaking it up in 2 sections with a curve in between. That's something you never really see on any real wooden coasters. So you also should not do that here. But like I said, this castle building, these castle buildings, they're top notch, and I really like the way those look. Okay, here's the entry made by Jonasjackson. So yeah, he made this Woody again with the broken up chain lift that probably cost him some points from voters. So yeah, it starts in the snowy section, then probably goes underground here, I'm not sure, or it goes into this helix. Then probably this is supposed to represent spring, with these all these colorful trees here. Then this is probably a summer section. Then it goes underground again. I'm guessing this is autumn. And then after that it goes back to the station. Now, I must say this tree in the middle looks nice, but as we move around you can see it glitch a lot, and that's really something you should avoid. You shouldn't put too many scenery pieces on the same location, on the same tile. Because yeah, it will glitch and it is really jarring when you view it. The other thing most people had issues with was this station. Yeah, it's fully just a track and texture roof that's overhanging. I'm not really sure it works. It's probably much nicer if you just use some actual walls and then put a elaborate roof like this on top. But yeah, I don't really think this works. It doesn't really look supported very well. Something you should avoid when making a roller coaster is to put large portions of it underground. It usually makes the coaster really hard to follow, and also in real coasters the underground sections are usually very simple, usually just straight parts. This is because it's expensive to build underground and difficult. But yeah, overall, I think this park does look really nice. Alright, we're halfway through all the entries. This is the entry that got 24th place from left-handed coffee mug. So yeah, you see this coaster here. It's all quite compact. As usual, for these compact coasters, I really would urge people to actually make it a little bit wider, add a bit of a gap in the middle, just some breathing space so the layout is easier to follow. When you make it so compact, it easily becomes a big mess of track. But I must say the support work is done quite nicely. Station building a bit too long in my opinion. A bit too much of the same material over the full length. But overall, I think this park looks quite nice. Also the color of the water, I really like it. And yeah, it just looks like a nice little beachside park with a little pier here and some extra rides. So yeah, overall, I think it's a decent entry. Okay, here I have the next entry made by Greenfieldr. This woody layout, a bit unconventional. So it drops down onto this building, then it does a double down into this ravine. It actually dips into the water here. I'm not really sure that's. Oh, it has a water splash. So okay, not really sure if that works, but. It is quite a cool element. I'll have to admit that. Now, what I didn't like about this coaster was actually that it had some braking sections in the middle of the track. Probably because it's so high that it would go too fast here in the coaster. Okay, so yeah, you can see a bit of a brake section right here, and there's another one here near the end. Yeah, if you need brakes in your coaster layout, then probably it's a better idea to make it a little bit less high than, because these brakes, they kill all the momentum the train has, and yeah, to me that really just makes the ride less interesting. But overall, some nice work on the buildings, and also some of the other rides are pretty cool. I really like the ghost train that's here in this mountain. It's just really well done. I like how it looks with the trees, all the buildings, and it's coming in and out of the mountain. That looks really nice. Alright, here we have the entry made by Blonde Tuco. He made this coaster called Hidden Coaster on Gitche Gumi. I hope I pronounced that correctly. So yeah, he actually based this off a really unusual wooden coaster. I forgot what it's called, Lost Coaster of something. I think it was in Indiana Beach. So yeah, basically that coaster was basically they had a dark ride going through caves and mountains and stuff. and at some point they decided to remove the dark ride and replace it with a wooden coaster. You should look it up on YouTube. You'll probably find it if you type in Lost Coaster. But yeah, that's a very unusual woody, and so is this one. So it actually goes up with a lift in the lighthouse. And then it also has two coaster trains, 2-car trains, and then it has this really unusual ride layout. So yeah, I think some people really liked the coaster, many people didn't really like it. So yeah, they've got a lot of different scores on the coaster part, but many people did really like the overall park. I mean, there's some really nice rides here, some really nice decorations. This lighthouse is really cool. Also the monorail. I think it works well to emulate a light circling around. That's really cool. Also, there's this really cool swinging ride going around the tree. And there's this nice El Loco coaster. Although I have to admit, this orange color is probably a little bit too bright. So yeah, it's nice when you make your own palettes, but you should really be careful to not make colors too bright. Because it doesn't really look real anymore. A toned down tint would have probably been a lot better. Okay, here we have the entry made by HenkDeSuperNerd. So yeah, he actually got a 1-point score subtraction because I offered him to be able to take 1 hour more because this part of the park was not finished. At the cost of 1 point to his score. I think that would be fair, so he took that offer and he spent 1 hour extra to try and rush to get this part of the park ready. And I think he did a great job at that. So yeah, the palette, I think it makes it look really nice. The park is based off Mad Max, I think. But yeah, let's first take a look at the woody layout. I really like all the hills and the drops it has. So here it goes up the hill, then around this rock, then goes down. Some nice airtime hills here, really twisty sections. A bit of a double down here. It just looks so nice seeing it go through this landscape. I really like that. It even has a transfer track here with an elevator. So you can see the transfer track. It would be able to move down here and put a train on this storage track. I think that's really clever. That's a nice arena here. The fight pit. There's also a display coaster car here, and it's called Human Sacrifice. It actually still has riders in it. They all want to get out of human sacrifice. I thought that was really funny. Now there's really nice buildings here. Some cool tar pits around the landscape. A really nice building here. I loved this building. And some other cool rides as well. And also one of these grandstands. I recently made a tutorial on how to make one of these grandstands, and a lot of people, a few people, used them in their parks. So that was really cool. Alright, this entry actually got a perfect score from me. But yeah, also got a 1 point subtraction because he took too long to finish his park. Alright, here we have the entry made by Tim Burbank. Now, at first glance, the landscaping here in this park is really nice. These waterfalls will make it look like a nice landscape. Also, these volcano pieces, they were used in a nice way. They're a good way to add some irregularity to your cliffs. The coaster, however, it has nice parts. I really like the decoration on this lift hill. That looks really good in my opinion. So the station is also quite nice. But yeah, what I don't like, I already complained about it in a few earlier entries from people. That it looks like a big mess of track all stacked on top of each other, like a big knot. For a woody, you really usually want to have some breathing space. So just make some space in the middle. Just make it a little bit bigger, just so the layout actually makes sense and people would be able to follow it. Also in this on this coaster, there are some parts where it goes really slow, so you should really watch the pacing of your trains. But yeah, other than that, there's some interesting buildings here. Not sure about this track architecture. Here's a cool little junior coaster. But yeah, what really made people vote well on this park was the nice landscaping everywhere. So good job on that. Alright, here's the entry from GROOT. GROOT made this huge tree, which also has mini golf in the top between the branches. I think that's pretty cool. Maybe it would have been nice if they had a different color for the holes. I'm not sure. Just playing around here. Right, for the woody layout, I think it looks nice between the treetops. Again, I usually avoid these long, straight, sloped sections, because yeah, they look a bit jarring to me. I prefer more rounded hills. But I think it's nice how it passes over and under this grub shack. There's a nice seating area as well, right next to the water. Some nice buildings here. But yeah, sadly a lot of the park is just covered with trees. But I must say, the areas that do have trees, they're done quite well. You can see there's some berry trees. Yeah, and lots of these quarter-tile trees put in between, so it looks like less like the trees are all on a grid. So yeah, overall, I think this is a really nice entry. Okay, then we have this entry made by Mulpie. Again, you can see all the beautiful landscaping here. I mean, all this greenery, it's really lush. I think it combines really well with the colors that Mulpie used throughout the park. I really love this bridge here. And the buildings, they also look very well decorated, using lots of different materials. So yeah, a really good job on the landscaping. The coaster layout, well, yeah, people were a bit less impressed with that. Yeah, there are some parts which it travels through really fast, and it has several of these stacked helixes. You really should try to avoid stacking helixes in this game. Like I said, you typically will only find that in parks in Japan, so this hill is probably taken a bit too fast. Also, this other coaster right next to here, it's also a bit of a weird one. But again, this station building is top notch. I love these skulls here on the side of the station, and I love how it's combined here with these bones. So yeah, it's a small angled mammoth fence, but it combines really well with this skull. So I think that's an awesome trick. I'm probably also going to use this in my mega park. I really like the way these two combine. So yeah, in this park, awesome landscaping, a bit less awesome coasters, but at least they look nice. Like I said, when you're a member on my Discord, which by the way is completely free, you can download and watch all these parks for yourself. There are a lot more details in this park than I can handle in this video. So if you see a nice park, just give it a download and you can look at them for yourself. Okay, here we have the entry made by Kanaiva. And damn, I really like this entry. So yeah, for the woody, it's a nice and simple layout. But it just works. It doesn't do anything crazy. The coaster has good pacing throughout the hills. Some nice airtime moments. So yeah, nice. It's nice and wide, spaced out nicely. So yeah, I think it just does everything correctly. It just well, yeah, also in this park you can see these nice diagonal paths. Mackett put an awesome tutorial on my Discord on how to make diagonal paths like these. So yeah, some really nice buildings next to the paths as well, just dispersed throughout the park. Just wherever you look, you see nice stuff in the park. Some nice bridges here as well. So yeah, nothing really stand out, wow, in your face, but everything just works. So yeah, this was actually one of my favorite entries. It's really nice to see people improve throughout these contests. This is one example of that. So yeah, a lot of these buildings were inspired by buildings from the Swag Shack. So yeah, I think this shows why it's a good idea to base your buildings on the buildings you see there. There's just tons and tons of nice examples. Alright, on to the next entry. Okay, here we have the entry made by Wacked. First glance, this Woody has a bit of a strange color scheme, but when you look closer you can see all the little details that went into it. There's nice support work everywhere. It makes the coaster look a little bit more bulky. A little nice tunnel here. Yeah, the layout, in my opinion, could have been a little bit longer, but I think it's done really nicely. Now, what I like most about this park is just the eye to detail in all of the buildings and the bridges. I think these bridges here, they look great. This building, I really love this awning he made with the Riff Rapids rack with go-kart track on top. That looks really nice. Also on the other side. Yeah, for these walls he just used many layers, and they all combine in a great way to make this building. It's amazing work. I really love looking at all these little details. We'll probably find a few of these buildings soon in the Swag Shack as well. It's really nice work. Probably my favorite building in this round is this little photo shop. I mean, that's just genius. It's a really nice combination of elements. And I can see why Wacked always takes so long to build in his parks, because the attention to detail everywhere is incredible. Now, probably he had to rush a bit in the end, so that's probably also why this water side looks a bit unfinished. There's a few more of those spots in his park as well, so that's probably where he lost a few points from voters. But overall, this work is incredible, and if you want to learn how to make good buildings, I really suggest you give this park a good look. Okay, here we have the entry from Heiko. I think it's been a while since he joined one of my contests. And yeah, this Woody is very small, well, very compact, but it's really beautifully crafted inside of this giant castle. In this castle, building by itself, just many layers, many different. Yeah, it looks different everywhere. I think this is just very beautiful. Just lots of usage of different materials, different layers. I mean, these combinations are great. For example, nice bridges here and nice towers, even a little bit of monorail wall around this tower. Just lots and lots of nice stuff to see. So the layout of the Woody, the chain lift goes a bit around the tower. Yeah, it's just really nice stuff to look at everywhere you look in this park. Yeah, this Woody, it looks compact, wild. It looks really fun to ride. It's a bit hard to follow in some places, but yeah, it's really one of my favorite layouts in this round. So yeah, really nice work. Okay, here's the entry from Dabug. So from the station building, the coasters actually go out, immediately drop into a hill, around, going around, turn around, then going up a hill, and then actually only there's the chain lift. And then they do a circuit around this spiral, and then they go down this ravine again, right over the river. And then they do another circuit of the coaster before they reach the brake section. So yeah, this is I think this is quite a cool layout, and a bit unconventional, but I do like the way it goes into this chain lift. What I like even more is the station building. I think that looks really good. Nice mix of materials, tracky texture roof. Yeah, I think it complements these Japanese roofs really well. Just really nice buildings throughout the park. Again, just so many cool details here to look at. So yeah, it's always nice when we get a newcomer like this who just blows us away with all these awesome buildings. By the way, when you have your park entrance here, you should really hide those fences. You can select this tile with the tile inspector and just remove park fences, and then it's gone. That might be a little thing to keep in mind next time. But yeah, overall, I think this is a really good entry, especially considering it's from someone who I've never seen on my Discord before. Okay, here's the entry from Jens Ye. He made this Woody. You may have seen it on the RCT subreddit already. So first it goes up this chain lift, then there's a little bit of a turnaround, then there's this double down. I think then it goes underground. So yeah, there's also a bit of a cutout section here. I think this is actually underground, but I'm not sure. Or maybe this is just a train yard. But I think this cutout section here is really cool. You can see some of the coaster track here. Or maybe this is the return track, I'm not sure. And then there's a bit of a turnaround here. And then it goes back over here. Yeah, I think the biggest problem this coaster had was that it's a bit hard to follow throughout this layout. It's always a bit of an issue with coasters that have a big underground section. You can see some nice airtime moments here in this double down. So yeah, here it's difficult to follow the coaster throughout the layout. You could see it pop out here again. So yeah, I think you should be a bit careful with that. Yeah, these buildings here, they all just look really cool. I love this brick combined here with these wooden poles, these walls, and this grey stuff. I really like this. Yeah, you can actually see under this bridge here. There's some barrels thrown around. Also, there's these train tracks all over the place with these these mine carts on it. I think it, yeah, I think it really helps to get some motion going around in the park. Yeah, it's just really nice when you just look around the park and you can see stuff move everywhere. It helps make the park feel alive. And of course, there's this awesome dome building here in the middle, which acts as a roof for these flying saucers. I really love how this dome building is done. So if you want to make one of these for yourself, yeah, just give this park a download and just take it apart and see how it's done. Okay, here's the park made by Pinion. I really like the way this looks. All these flags are also done nicely. I really like how you can immediately tell which countries these flags are from. And some are not from countries, I see. So yeah, the layout of the Woody, I really like it. You can see it go up the mountain here, then there's a curved drop. Then the first hill has a double down. I always really like these. You can see some hills here, which are banked on the top. That's also nice to see. You see more and more of that since RMC really started dominating the market recently. So yeah, a bit of an underground section, but it's quite short, and you can expect the coaster to pop out again here. Bit of a turnaround here. I think this layout is just done really well. That rain again. So other than the coaster, there's some really nice buildings. And unlike most people, these buildings were also decorated on the inside. I mean, you can see this big chimney here. And when we go into cutaway view, you can actually see inside the building. And there's actually a really nice fireplace here. These buildings all just look so cozy. So yeah, that's what I really like about the park. It just looks really nice. Of course, there's the big Christmas tree here in the middle. There's these snow mobiles going around it, which use the jet skis. There's also a slide here with some extra boats here to the side. It all just has really cool little details everywhere. There's even a really cool fire truck here. Oops, so let's put it a bit higher. So yeah, this fire truck, I think it's brilliant. It's a mix of track elements and some ride cars. That's just done in an incredible way. I didn't even know this was possible without using custom objects. So that's really cool. Okay, here we have the entry from H-Man, and this was my favorite layout of the contest. Also, he used a really nice. He made a really nice palette, which turned many of the trees to a shade of red. I think it makes it for a really nice autumn theme. So yeah, you can see the coaster going up the chain lift after it passes around this curve. Yeah, then it goes through this huge diagonal section. There's another diagonal section. I really love this turnaround. It's a double turnaround, sort of in a T shape. And then it goes back, does a spiral here, and then it goes back here to the station. I think this layout is just wonderfully done, and it utilizes a big portion of the map while still being easy to follow, just because for most of the layout there's just two tracks next to each other. So yeah, I think that's what makes this layout so nice. It's easy to follow, it doesn't do anything crazy, there's some nice airtime hills, it just uses the landscape well. Yeah, it just does everything well, so it's a great job on that. The station is quite simple, but it still looks nice. So yeah, what I didn't really like about this park was this section of the park. I mean, this other ride is actually quite nice with some nice custom supports. I think he may have packed a bit too many rides into this small area. But still, great work on the coaster, great work on the palette. This was my favorite coaster layout. Alright, here we get into the top 10. No, yeah, this may be a little bit difficult to follow for you if you're in a bright room, because this park uses a Halloween palette that I once made for a multiplayer round. So yeah, it's very dark, but with very bright yellows and oranges. So yeah, we have this Woody in the middle here. I think it's a really nice layout, quite compact, but still easy to follow, because it does have some gaps in the middle, some space. So yeah, that's a good thing. Also, I really like most of these buildings that are here. Here's a really nice church. Here's also a really cool little tower, which actually has these Egyptian ruins inside. Again, this might be difficult to follow if you're in a bright room. But yeah, I think all these buildings really use the yellow and orange tints well, which are accentuated in this palette. Also, I made the water red in this palette. So just to make it look like blood or something. I think it also looks quite nice here. So yeah, Risiko did a good job with that, in my opinion. So yeah, really nice entry. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, here's the entry from Anda23. He made this really nice looking entry. Of course, immediately you see the palette with this with the gold color for these temple stair pieces. I think that works really well. I just love the way these stairs look. I think it was called El Dorado, the city of gold. I mean, these buildings, they all look amazing. I love this layering also with the different colors. I think that works really well for these buildings. Also, the coaster layout, I really love it. So it goes up the chain lift. There's some of these shallow hills. There's some nice airtime moments. It does a turnaround. It goes around the first hill again. Here it does a bit of a spiral, and then it goes back to the station. So yeah, the coaster doesn't really do anything crazy. The landscaping everywhere is top notch. There's lots and lots of nice temple pieces. And also here's an interesting other coaster. So yeah, if you're on my Discord, just give this park a download and check it out for yourself. It might give you some ideas, and it also might give some good ideas on how to do landscaping and greenery, because the plant work in this park is absolutely amazing. Okay, here's another park from a newcomer on my Discord, Shen Kitchen. I really love the vintage palette used in this park. The watercolor is really has this nice purplish tint, and the normally blue ice is now more of a white tint. The coaster, I think it has really nice colors. Shen Kitchen gave this coaster a mix of different colors of brown, and I think it works really well. Yeah, this weird mix of these browns. For some reason, I really like it under this coaster. Coaster layout is also really nice. I rated it quite highly. So yeah, good mix of double ups, double downs, airtime hills, nice hills. So yeah, it does a few circuits, but there's enough space between the tracks, even with trees put in between them to emphasize that it doesn't really look like a big jumble of tracks. These buildings around here, they're all beautifully crafted. There's also a nice train going around the entire park. It all just looks so nice. Especially this building, it's one of my favorites. Yeah, again, just beautifully crafted. Only for this inverted coaster, I thought these airplane cars are a bit too weird for me. But yeah, overall, this entry was one of my favorites. Also, definitely one of my favorite areas are these balconies made with this monorail track and steeplechase track on top. It's quite simple, but really effective. You can also see more of that here. Anyway, really nice entry. Great job. Alright, in 7th place we have this entry from Mama Rias. Damn, you can immediately see this Zeus figure, and this is the best piece of best sculpture made with track and texture and scenery that I have ever seen in this park. This is just amazing work. You can immediately see what it is. It is beautifully crafted, well done. But yeah, this entry was one of the reasons that I introduced a new voting system where people give a rating for the park and one rating for the coaster. Because the wooden coaster in this park, I think it's a bit lackluster. So yeah, the park got a 10 from most people, but the wooden coaster got a lower rating from most people. So yeah, it's a bit awkwardly situated here on top of the hill. well, the station is right here. Then it goes, does a huge chain lift up to the top, and then it circles around the hill several times. It's quite hard to follow, but yeah, just because it's so high, I believe it actually has several break sections along the track, or else it would just go way too fast at the end. They're hidden quite well, but you can see a break section right over here. And probably the wooden coaster could have used some extra supports along the way. There's a nice hyper coaster here. What Mamarias probably should have done was actually put the wooden coaster here on the bottom of the mountain, and then put a different coaster on top. That probably would have worked better in my opinion. But still, scenery wise, this is absolutely my favorite entry. This Zeus figure is just amazing, and so are these decorations on the top of the mountain. That's just amazing work. Okay, here we have the entry made by Skifa, and yeah, I think he's the only one who used the reverse wooden trains. You can see it go up the lift hill here backwards. He's also the only person to have made a switchback wooden roller coaster. I believe there's one such roller coaster operating in the world. So yeah, it does this twisty section here, and then it goes backwards up this spike, and then there's a sort of a switch track here that goes through the water splash here, and then here I believe it turns around again and then goes back to the station. So yeah, to be honest, I probably would have used the articulated roller coaster trains here, just because the track is so incredibly twisty, and those cars probably would have fit better here, in my opinion. But I must say, all these buildings here, they're beautifully crafted. I really also like this golf course. Looks really nice. Also the coaster passes over it with this really nice arch. This building here, it's amazing. I also love this pool that he made, which the coaster also travels through twice. Really nice train station here. So a building for the merry-go-round. Skifa really likes building those. So yeah, just a really top-notch building work. You can see stuff here that I didn't even know was possible without using custom scenery items. So yeah, great work. Okay, here we have the entry made by What the Hexadecimal, or Hex as we usually call him now. He made this cool Woody here. So yeah, it really looks like one of those boardwalk style coasters with a wide supports and yeah, a little bit of different color track. I think it looks really cool. The support work on this coaster, I think it's great. The layout, it also just really works. There's a nice station building here as well. You can see all the guests lining up. He, for some reason, gave all these coasters and rides Dutch names. This one's called Stormen. I would have probably called it the Storm, but that aside. So yeah, also something he did was that on top of every hill he put these chain lift pieces. These older coasters typically all have a set of teeth here, just as an anti-rollback device. So in case the coaster doesn't make it up the hill, it will get stopped right here on top. So yeah, that's usually emulated with chain lifts. So yeah, they don't actually function as chain lifts, because the coaster has enough speed anyway. But yeah, I also like the interaction it has with this road. You can see a monorail here, so I guess this is the monorail course. Something else that I really liked about this entry was this hotel. It has some really nice signs on the side, nicely decorated with wall pieces behind them. Here's a sculpture that says "Drink wine." I approve of that. So yeah, this hotel is a really nice work. Even a little parking area here, and actually a lot of these cars have names of people that are on our Discord. So yeah, that was a nice trick. This apparently is my car. I have a yellow sports car, and there's also some really nice other rides here. Some just some arcade games, just carnival rides, stuff like that. So yeah, this I think this is a really cool entry. Definitely one of my favorites of this round. Okay, we had a tie for third place. This entry was made by Swag Titties, the owner of the Swag Shack, and he made all these great buildings. But of course, this contest was about the Woody, and the Woody also looks really good. Kinda reminds me of the one we saw in the last entry from What the Heck's Decimal. Again, one of those boardwalk style Woodies. Just tons of nice support work with the coaster passing through the supports several times. It's just a really good layout. Again, it might be a little bit difficult to follow sometimes, but yeah, that's often the case for these boardwalk Woodies anyway, as they pass through the support structure often. This station building, I think it's really nice. It even has one of these parked coaster trains in front, suspended above some white water. Probably also ties into the name of the coaster, which is called Riptide. Really nice buildings everywhere, really nice fences, decorations, arcade games, extra rides. Also have a little wild mouse here, Macket's Mania. I believe it was a clone of a ride Macket made earlier, in an earlier round. I really like the way it looks. My favorite part is probably the Dirk Cinema. I wonder who it's called after. And my favorite trick is actually this window here, because right now it looks like this window is angled. But yeah, it uses some perspective tricks to actually make it look like this window is jutting out. It's not, but it just looks like it. Yeah, it's these perspective tricks that I really admire. They're great. So yeah, this part got a perfect score from me. I just love everything that's placed here, and especially loved this building over here. But the Woody was also amazing. So yeah, great work once again from Swag Titties, and I'm happy he finally made it to the top 3. Alright, here's the other park that made it to the top 3. You may have also seen this one on the RCT subreddit. Well, the first thing you'll probably notice is this palette. I think the palette is great. It doesn't have any green in it. Also the watercolor, it has this grey brownish tint, but I think it works really well for autumn palette. The support work on this coaster is great, and the layout is also amazing. I mean, it just really looks nice. It flows nicely. It's a bit twisty, but not too much. Looks like it has some nice airtime hills as well. Yeah, also the station of the coaster is amazing. I really love this castle style building. Even has a little transfer track here. There's great buildings all throughout. Yeah, and this palette, it just makes the trees, the color of the trees, very beautiful in my opinion. Here's also a nice little extra coaster. I think it looks like a bit like one of those Pinfari coasters with a loop, so with some nice fences around it. So yeah, all in all, I think this is a beautiful entry, and I think it's a well-deserved third place. I just hope to see more beautiful palettes like these, or I hope to see more people use this exact palette, because yeah, what you can do with it is incredible. Alright, here we get to the park that's in second place. Hey, who's this? So yeah, this park was themed after Avenged Sevenfold. I think it was an anniversary or something. So yeah, what immediately pops up is this huge sculpture here on the side of the coaster, which the coaster also passes through. This is probably one of the most amazing pieces of architecture I've seen, other than the Zeus sculpture that Mamarias made in his entry. This just looks incredible. This layout of the coaster is also really good. Just a nice mix of lower hills, higher hills, twisty sections, airtime moments. It's just an amazing layout. Other than that, this park is just full of nice sculptures. One trick that I really like in this park is the usage of this electric fence inverted corner piece. I've never used it before, but I will use it for sure. I think it's a great element. It works great for sculptures. You can even bury them into the ground a little bit. Yeah, I think it's a great scenery object. So I will definitely use that one in the future. It's one thing I like about these contests, seeing these new tricks that people use. So lots of innovations going on, especially with the expansion items, because so far they've been largely ignored by the different RCT2 communities. But as you can see, using them wisely can enable you to do some incredible tricks in your park. Now, I love all the little details in this park. There's just way too many to mention. I'll just go through a few. You can see this nice stage here. He even froze a few entertainers here on this stage, with a few still running around. He made this drum kit here. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. He also made one of these grandstands, like I showed in my tutorial. Of course, this is a really good place, right in front of a stage. Mazes, there's just many other rides, even a church. By the way, if you download the park and use Cutaway View, you can look in the basement of the church and you will find an Easter egg. I won't spoil it. I wanted you to go look for yourself. Trust me, it's quite funny. But yeah, like I said, there's just too many details to go over all of them. Also, there's a really cool shoestringed ride here. But yeah, like I said, just go download the park for yourself and go check it out. Go check out all these amazing details. This is a really well-deserved second place. And it's really one of the best things I've ever seen built in one of my contests. So amazing, great work. Alright, and here we have the winning entry of this round. This one was made by Mackett. Mackett once again takes the cake with an amazing wooden roller coaster. So yeah, on this wooden coaster, what's striking is of course the usage of all these diagonal elements. It makes this coaster look really big. In my opinion, it makes the coaster look a bit too stretched out, but most people really liked the way this looked. Amazing work here on the station, on the transfer track. These buildings look absolutely amazing. The support work is great. There's some really cool diagonal paths here as well. These buildings are all top notch. I mean, there's all stuff I didn't know was possible without custom scenery. Even these paths, they're a great mix of scenery pieces and path tiles. Really cleverly done. All these nice diagonal paths. Even there's this nice diagonal bridge here, one of Mackett's trademarks. Nice flags on the chain lift. There's just so much cool stuff to look at throughout the park. Hey, I recognize this park, this ride. I made something like this in my mega park. But yeah, there's just so much cool stuff to look at. There's even a little extra coaster tucked away in the corner here. To me, this feels a bit shoehorned in, but the ride does look nice. It's executed well, even as this observation tower supports under it. It's just so cool to see Mackett use all the little tricks we discovered and perfected in the past few weeks, months. So yeah, that's it. If you want to see a crash course on how to work, how to make incredible stuff without using custom scenery, just go download this park and really take it apart, see how stuff is done, and yeah, try to make it for yourself, because this is how you win a contest. Anyway, yeah, this contest was absolutely fantastic. We had 47 entries. That's way more than we've ever had. Probably the maximum I'll allow for future contests is 50 entries. So if we get above that, we'll probably do a pre-selection of entries with the staff team, just so these videos don't become too long, and also just so the voting process doesn't take too long for everyone. So yeah, this new voting system that we introduced, I think it puts a higher emphasis on actually making a good ride, and less emphasis on just making a cool landscape. Because now, if your ride itself is not good, you will also not get a very good score. But yeah, these last few entries, they just had it all. Alright, this was a long recording session. I hope you enjoyed this, watching this video. If you want to join one of these ride contests yourself, usually at the start of each month I put out an announcement video where I will state the rules of the contest, and it also tells you how to join one of these contests. Alright, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you again in the next one. See you later.